These have just been so much fun to just sit with people and get to know people and just share some space,
It's
you know?
great. Yeah, it's great. Oops, I think I have to turn off a thingy here.
Okay.
Okay, good. That should be okay.
There we go. Okay, we are in. So, welcome everybody to today's Eat and Greet, where hopefully in the next hour, we're going to give you something that is worth the time you took to show up. And I think that we definitely will, because today we're going to talk about upcoming transit of Jupiter into Pisces, which is exciting. I think it does have its challenges. So, I look forward to seeing what you have to say to Rose. But Jupiter's coming home. He's like in more comfort. That's always really nice. I think for us, when planets are comfortable, it's kind of like, okay, we can, stretch the creaks and eeks out a little bit easier than we could before. And to take us on a tour of this particular transit, I've found Rose Marcus to share some space and time with. So welcome, Rose.
Oh, thank you so much, Stormy, for having me on, and it's absolutely delightful to meet you.
Yeah, it's so fun because while the shutdown of life in 2020 was not great and pretty horrific for many people, what it did do is put us all in home space, so we were accessible. So I know you're busy, you have so much going on, and so do I. So it was nice that we had a pause to make a
Yeah.
date with
Yeah.
and we might not have been able to do that this year had we not had the experiences of last year.
Absolutely, absolutely. And the astrology end of things, I mean, there's such an explosion going on now on the planet. But in terms of all the media talking about COVID fatigue and how depressing all of that is, as I find that we connect like this and through astrology, you find instant connection, instant rapport, instant support, instant community, and so it really picks up the slack of, for the whole pressure ceiling that COVID has put on us, all the restrictive elements, right?
Yeah, I absolutely agree. And I was talking, I can't remember who I was talking with, but we kind of were saying the same thing as well, is that even though it is virtual and we're not getting to, experience that present heartbeat of the other soul that you're sitting with, there is still something that is so healing about the virtual connection that I think is really important. I think it's even just important to our bodies to have other people to have these ideas and these moments with and just be together. So, yeah.
Well, I definitely think that astrology connects us through the heartbeat. I definitely do. So, yeah, there's no degree of separation
Mhm.
when you are with this kind of subject matter.
Yeah. Oh, see, we're going to have a good session. I feel it already. It's already good. I'm in. So I ask everybody who comes to visit to tell us a little bit how you got started in astrology and what that journey was like before we jump into our topic.
Well, it's been with me my entire life from the time I was very, very young. It was a funny little story that just a few years back, I was doing a lecture, someplace else, and I had run into an old school buddy from elementary school. And we had lunch together. We hadn't seen each other in eons. And she said to me, I still remember the astrology project you did in grade 6, and it inspired me to study astrology later in my life. And that was like, she
Awesome.
remembered it, I didn't. But I grew up in, my parents were religious and we went to church every Sunday, but it wasn't a church, it was a cathedral. Orthodox religion, which is full of incense and candles and these Byzantine paintings. And the ceiling was painted with the night sky with iridescent
Mhm.
stars and clouds. And as a child, of course, I'm not real keen on, what's going on up front. So I'm spacing out and it's just like I'm getting infused with all of the inspiration of the night sky. So that's right from the get-go. When I was about 16, I started studying seriously. I was kind of a lost soul at that point in time. And I had the sense that astrology was going to give me the tools to navigate my life and to have some greater understanding about where I was going and what this was all about. So
Yeah.
that's the start booming for me the whole time. And I think a lot of us are called in that way. There's something that calls you to the study of the subject.
Yeah, I agree. Absolutely. That was my experience. It was, right place, right time, but ultimately it was answering the call, and it was like picking up the phone to a conversation I had been in 100 times before.
Mhm.
It's absolutely brilliant. So when did you officially start in practice? Like, this is it. I'm going to do it.
Well, it had always been with me, and people kept saying to me all throughout, why aren't you doing this? I got married, and my husband and I were artists, and we pursued an art career. At that time, figuring that maybe there would be more money in art than there would be in astrology. And we built up quite a business, an international business. We had a staff of 7, so we we're really going to town with that.
Wow.
And I just got to the point of where, for me, art no longer had soul. There had to be some kind of purpose. I wasn't, I didn't feel like I was where I needed to be. And I absolutely had to quit. That was in my mid 30s when I moved into professional astrology. But all along, throughout all those years, I was doing art. I was, kind of doing the astrology on the side because people kept asking me, and this is it too, that kind of sense of I'm called. I don't know why people kept coming to me, because I think that they thought that I knew something, right? And so, so
Yes.
I had some information for them. And so whenever people needed me, I showed up.
Yeah.
And, that's, I think, meant to be, destined to be. I studied with and under Jeffrey Wolf Green, and he was my biggest support, my biggest mentor, and, was really instrumental in pushing me into full-time professional practice.
Yeah. It's always nice to have somebody there who kind of can offer that outside view and say, jump in the pool, like, go ahead, do it. It's going to be fine.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and that's about today as well too. When I first hung out a shingle, it was kind of iffy whether you'd actually make a living at it or not. Today, it is a very viable career to have. It's brilliant, and we're busy, aren't we? We're super
Yes.
busy, and and there's never any retirement for an astrologer, right?
Hmm.
As quite recently Chris McRae has left the planet, and she was, I forget, 94 when she passed, and she was active, like like right up to the end, teaching classes and
Yeah.
traveling and so forth, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It, I mean, but what a great life, what a great career to not retire from.
Yes.
It's like, I know I've definitely had those days, maybe you can relate, where I'm like, I need a break. I need to take like 2 months off, and I'll book out the calendar, and I'm like, oh, I'm going to breathe. I'm just going to relax. I'm going to let my hair down. And then I'm like, but I mean, I could also just check out this chart real quick. I mean, like, just really quick. I just 2 seconds, because it's not about the obligation of, oh, I have to work, this fear of not having enough, but this genuine interest in what's moving and pulsing through the cosmos, and what is that trickling down to us. So what a great profession to not retire from.
And it constantly evolves and expands, and so there's so much more to learn. I mean, there's not a day that goes by that it doesn't grab me, like, it's fascinating, it's exciting, it is, there's never a dull moment, never.
Never a dull moment. And then you involve clients, and then there is really never a dull moment, right?
Absolutely.
Brilliant. So we've got a cool transit coming up where Jupiter is going to move back and transit do his stint through the energy of Pisces, and we get a small snack of that, like a preview here in 2021 before he's going to officially make his move and do his time through Pisces. And do you have an overall sense of what this energy is going to bring to the table, especially in the preview time between May and July? What are you What do you see
Yeah, well, when a planet just dips in and dips out, like it's only going to go to 2 degrees and then it's going to retrograde and go out. It's middle of
there?
May to end of July. But the Jupiter transit is very, very important for several different reasons. First of all, Jupiter is currently the ruler of the transiting lunar south node.
Right.
And the transiting nodes, which are an 18-month cycle, they run 18 months in a sign axis. So right now we have the south node moving through the sign of Sagittarius, and we have the north node moving through the sign of Gemini. So wherever those nodes are traveling, they are going to punch up the influence of the rulers of those signs. So Sagittarius is ruled by Jupiter and the Gemini is ruled by Mercury. So both of those transits are important to watch during this 18-month cycle. And so that's why, for one, that Jupiter is very important, the fact that it's just dipping in and dipping out. Now, Jupiter was the ancient rulership of Pisces when ancient man was looking with the naked eye, and could only see to Jupiter, to Saturn. And so nowadays, of course, Neptune is the rulership of Pisces. So that's an important transit to watch for that sake. Now, there's so much more that goes on with that. But Jupiter is one of the planets that I think that the general public looks to, and has kind of an idea of, all this good stuff is going to come my way, and all of that. And a lot of times when a Jupiter transit finishes, they're going to say, well, my abundance didn't come. What happened there?
Right.
So Jupiter is an increased planet, and it's going to expand or increase wherever it goes. But you have to realize that wherever it goes. So if you are on a track that is that is an abundance track, then Jupiter is going to bring you more abundance. But if you're on a loss track, for example, then you're going to end up with more loss or more confusion or so on. We always say with Jupiter needs to create some space first before it does the delivery truck, right? So it's going to create room to gift you. I do like the Jupiter transits coming up, and I can go to town on that. But let's just start with talking about the general of what Jupiter represents, right? Jupiter is the planet of beliefs. It's the planet of envisioning. It's all about philosophies and higher mind concepts, right? So philosophies move into religion and so forth, religion, spirituality, metaphysics, cosmology, the whole 9 yards. Jupiter is all about our belief systems and how belief systems create reality. Right, so and Jupiter corresponds also to the right brain. So it's intuitive, right? It's that intuitive sense of there must be more than this. And it's that desire to go find whatever it is that intuition is saying is out there and that you have not yet quite discovered yet, right? That's yeah. And Jupiter and its ruling sign, Sagittarius, is about the future. It's future bound. Jupiter is an envisioning archetype here. So, we're on an adventure with Jupiter and Sagittarius. And where are we going? We're going to the future, right? Exactly. We're going to the future, right? Jupiter's transit is 12 years. It spends 1 year in a sign. And so it entered into Aquarius at the end of December. And as the media reported, that was quite a big deal, right? That 1 year transit, because Saturn also entered into Aquarius. Saturn's a 2.5 year transit. So Jupiter and Saturn are a planetary pair. Please forgive me. I'm going to go back a little and forward a little.
That's all right. I'm just so fascinated here. I'm like, yes, we're in.
Yeah. So Jupiter's transit is important, first of all, because it's corresponding to the transit of the nodal axis. So it's punched up. And the nodal axis continues through Sagittarius and Gemini all the way through the end of 2021. All right. Started in May of 2020. At that time, Jupiter and Saturn were both in the sign of Capricorn. At the end of the year, it was December 16 that Saturn moved into Aquarius, and on the 19th, Jupiter moved into Aquarius, and on the 21st, on the winter solstice, they aligned in Aquarius, right? Now, Jupiter and Saturn as a planetary pair work in a 20-year cycle. And that 20-year cycle corresponds to economic growth. We say 10 years up, 10 years down, right? So we've got Jupiter and Saturn on this move along here. Additionally, they correspond, they're called the great timekeepers, and they're launching this new 240-year cycle. It's got an overlap of about 60 years there. But so that's a new world age. And on top of that, there's a bigger picture agenda that's going on. That is the transition of the ages, moving out of the age of Pisces, out of the age of Aquarius into the age of Pisces, which all of the transits are doing their part to advance, right? So we've got these larger, broader perspectives on that. And corresponding to that ending of the world age, for those who have advanced knowledge of astrology, we also have planetary nodes of the planets. Yeah. So we have the planetary node of Jupiter, which is in the sign of Capricorn, aligned with Pluto in Capricorn, Saturn in Capricorn, and so on. And we have the north node of Jupiter in the sign of Cancer. All right. And they, just for those who have some advanced knowledge, they don't line up like the lunar nodes do. They're a little bit out of whack, right? And so it's, maybe advanced stuff. So that's why I'm talking about Jupiter corresponding to the world age as well, too, because it's going over the planetary nodes. Planetary nodes are how we all collect in, how the collective tunes in. I kind of loosely have dubbed them like the astrology's Akashic records,
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Oh, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah.
And don't hold me to that, but it's, it's kind of the way, it's kind of the way they are. And we're all tapping into that kind of energy, right? Capricorn archetype, all last year, Capricorn's the archetype of time, and it's bringing time to an end, right? A whole cycle is coming to an end. Jupiter and Saturn are on this new 20-year trajectory. Jupiter has already surpassed its south node. It's already moved up, and so on. So we're into a new clock. We're into these new cycles are starting, right? Mm-hmm. So Jupiter's transit is very important to watch this particular year, and the fact that as it is the ruler of that north node, the sign switch is really important. Jupiter in Aquarius is really interesting as well too, because just on a demonstrating level here, science is moving at a much faster rate. That's Aquarius, right? The science of producing those vaccines that really should have taken a lot longer. We've got 3 missions that are on their way to Mars right now. It's like this acceleration. That's what Aquarius does. It accelerates, so we've got all this like kind of fast track, right? Yeah. So that's all the movement that we're making. Now, when Jupiter moves into Pisces, what's Pisces about? Jupiter is about our belief systems, and belief systems that create our existing reality, right? When we're looking at the planetary nodes of Jupiter, the planetary nodes of Jupiter, South Node in Capricorn, which is, giving us the historical frame of reference. We're looking to the past and beliefs of the past that we project forward and use it to create our existing reality, right? That's Capricorn. It's the old ways, it's the old ways. And in this transition of the ages, we see that, with all this Aquarius energy right now, we're busting up the concrete. And that's all last year, systemic racism, the Me Too movements, it's all the stuff like, why is it happening now? Because we're busting up, all of that, right? And it's just like, permeating the world reality at every single level. Now this Jupiter in Pisces is a little taster that we're getting as well too. What's Pisces about, right? Pisces is the search for our ultimates, our ultimate ideals, our ultimate sense of purpose, value, and meaning. Ultimate vocation or ultimate purpose. It's all of that. Pisces is the collective attunement, right? And that's how mass consciousness. We're all tapping into. We're all resourcing. Pisces is the archetype of resourcing, and it's the archetype of source. What you're sourcing from there. When we move into Pisces, it's the oceanic experience of consciousness, right? And this is the whole collective wave, right? It's how we are all tuning in. We're all tuning into the same things. It's that whole search. So we've got Jupiter about belief systems, and we've got Neptune, the Pisces archetype, about hope and faith and inspiration and imagination and so on. It's a whole creative process. They're both, they're very suitable together here, because Jupiter is expanding this idea of the search for more hope. Isn't that what we're looking for on the planet? I mean, we're looking for hope. Where do we place our faith? Is faith gone? Pisces is also the archetype of disillusionment, right? And loss. And we've been moving through this period of time, and this collective, we're so disillusioned, it's a loss of faith and a loss of hope and a loss of our humanity, and all of that. But the ocean, Pisces, it's multidimensional. We have both ends of the spectrum. So Pisces is the archetype of potential. And as we move through Jupiter and Pisces, it's the search for potential, right? It's a search for our ultimate potentials. What is of ultimate value and meaning? What happens with the Pisces archetype and Jupiter moving through that sign? We already have Neptune in the sign of Pisces. The two will meet in April of next year. So that's going to complete a whole cycle. Jupiter is working its way towards, it's on a trajectory with Neptune right now, in a closing pattern right now. And that is important transitioning in terms of collective seeding for a future, and it's now about hoping, it's now about opening up all of that. I was going to say that Jupiter is the search for truth, right? And in terms of that search for truth, I was thinking about Jeffrey Wolf Green said this to me one time when I was in a particular, difficult moment, and he said, the truth will prevail. And I was thinking about that this morning. The truth always prevails, and so in terms of your search for your ultimate potential, for living your life in this unified way, so that you are in unison with your soul, so that you are at one with yourself, and therefore at one with the creative process, at one with soul and source, requires that you adjust, again, how you relate to truth, right? And truth will prevail, so you can stay attached, to trying to put square peg in round hole in your life. Do you know what I'm saying? That's what I'm saying. You can squirm, and you can suffer, and you can lose, but your truth is still going to prevail. You're still going to find your watermark. And, I always think of, water, how it splashes, and eventually when it stops thrashing around, it finds its even keeler, it finds its right watermark. The collective will find its truth in what it means to be co-creators with the divine, what it means to be co-creators on this planet in respect for Mother Nature and in respect for each other and humanity. You too will find, your inner truth. And it's a difficult journey, all the Pisces influences that we've had, and we've had a lot. Yeah, Neptune has been squaring the karmic axis October to about now. Where is anything going? Where is COVID going? When is the pandemic going to stop? What's going to happen next? There's a lot of nebulousness. There's a lot of question marks. There's a lot of unknownness here.
Yeah.
But when we pull back from fear, and we pull back from trying to solve it, we're always, consciousness is always trying to be a fortune teller. Later on it's going to look like this, later on I'm going to get there. And if we can kind of remember to pull back, Pisces is the archetype of relinquishing, surrendering, and transcending, right? And that is such a hard lesson when you have a fear base. But if you've ever gone through these really extreme crises in your life where your whole life is blowing up and nothing is working and you end up with nothing, and in that moment, as difficult as that is, you kind of go like,
right, you just kind of
all of
surrender.
you surrender, and all of a sudden things start to flow and they start to get better, and avenues open up and help shows up. And do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's like the release that is needed. And I think a lot about the fact that in Pisces energy, I think a lot about that we do a lot of assimilation there. It's the great womb. So everything becomes assimilated in there. And with Jupiter coming in, it's like understanding the great truth and our alignment to that so that we kind of can have a surrender and let this thing do what it needs to do. Let us do and be what we need to be in our lives and in these different areas, for sure. Yeah, and as a collective, for sure. We've seen a lot of information. We need just a little snack of Jupiter to say, okay, that's all going to come together. I do think we need that preview of hope, and that we will be able to assimilate everything that we've seen and somehow moving forward be able to bring that into a collective consciousness.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And time is moving forward, and we are, the longer we go, we've started the pandemic, for example, what's going to happen tomorrow? What's going to happen tomorrow? Right now we're a long way through it, so at least we know what's occurred. So
Right.
there's something there, right? There's something there to go on already. And as we move through this period of time, it's like what I was saying, with the Pisces influences, a lot of dilemma going on. A lot of people are in dilemma. I don't know how to proceed next. I don't know how to put left foot in front of right foot.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And what I say is let it unfold.
Right.
So when you're in dilemma, it's not strong enough to give you direction, right? You could go right, but left has something there too. Or
Mm-hmm.
or right is a yeah but left might, it's
Right.
all. And as you just hold for a moment, something else drops into place. It's like
Yeah.
solving a puzzle.
Yeah. Or you start to walk forward and you go, oh, that is not the way at all. Right. Because dilemma is not direction.
Right,
Right. So
exactly.
sometimes you gotta just take a couple steps and see what happens. Because I
Yeah.
don't know. The truth, I think, Rose, prevails every time. And when we move against our nature or we move against the flow, I think each of us has a little monitor that goes, hey, no. And it's like, oh, okay, well, maybe now I can try this direction. And I still don't know what's happening, but there's a less pressure.
Well, that's quite true. And Pisces polarity is Virgo.
Yeah.
And Virgo is an archetype of elimination, and so if you have a strong Virgo quality in your chart, then you may say, oh, I've made these mistakes and so on, but it's not about that. It's about getting clear. And sometimes the best way to get clear is to try it and see how it does not work for you,
Exactly.
right?
I know I'm a Virgo rising.
Yeah.
I'm like, just try it and you'll figure out if that's not it.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's a quicker route to the goal sometimes, ouch, that hurts. No, don't want that.
Yes.
Yeah, right.
The stove is in fact still hot. Okay.
Yes. Yeah, that's a trust factor with that as well too, right?
Yes.
Absolutely. So, as we move through Jupiter in Pisces, in terms of that, it can be very subtle for you, but in looking at the movement of Jupiter through Pisces, um, it will start with and first of all, we're coming up to where this is March 1st, right?
Mm-hmm.
On March 4th, on Thursday, Mercury and Jupiter are conjunct. All right, and they're conjunct in the sign of Aquarius, and those are the rulers of the nodal axis. So they are starting a new journey. And whenever I'm looking at transits, I'm looking at the cycle, looking at the whole cycle. Where did it start? So just as of Thursday, we're into a new program in terms of the transing nodal axis. Wherever the transing nodes are going through your chart, I like to refer to them and the houses that they're going in as a major arcana, if you know tarot, right?
Sure. Sure.
Like they're featuring houses of your natal chart, and that'll be the subject du jour over that 18-month cycle. Eclipses happen along that. So, that's very relevant in terms of where those nodal axes are going. But as we move through into that Jupiter in Pisces, just before Jupiter leaves Aquarius, it will square Mercury, which will be in Taurus. Yeah. And then when it comes out of the retrograde of Jupiter in Pisces, we have Jupiter in Aquarius squaring Ceres in Taurus. And so it's giving you kind of a bookend chapter throughout that. Mercury will move through two cycles while Jupiter is in Pisces. It's going to move through first quarter and it's going to move through a gibbous. And so that's very actionable. And the inner planets are moving from, they're moving from Taurus into Leo. And there's this kind of movement that I see with that. Gemini picks up the Gemini, and that's the sun moving through Gemini, Venus moving through Gemini, Mercury moving through Gemini, and Mars moving through Gemini. So it's all the inner planets. So as Jupiter moves into Pisces, it opens things up. It's going to kind of expand, for one, that search for, and also expanding, it's stirring up potentials as well too. Now, when it picks up the Gemini piece, Gemini is all about information gathering, right? So this is more information coming out for us, and the information is experiential, the ability to connect with people, have some conversations with people. If you're looking for a job or looking for something else to do, there's more stuff, out there for you to research, right? So it's information intake. And then all the planets move into Cancer, and they're going to cross over Jupiter's north node. That north node is, let me just make sure I've got that together here. The north node, 29 degrees of Gemini to 21 degrees of Cancer. All right. So that's a long time. As all those planets go over there, it's picking up something, right?
Right.
And the Cancer archetype, the North Node in Cancer, is a suggestion for the collective of a rebirth, of what it means to feel secure and safe, what it means to nurture and nourish self, and it's a whole, again, about protecting and preserving the global community, really, us, humanity. It's all about that kind of dynamic here. So as all those triggers of all those transits are going over Jupiter's north node and making trines to Jupiter, which is in Pisces, this is going to get you feeling your way along something that nourishes you better, something that might nurture you better.
Okay.
It's got all of that. First, it's like, the Gemini piece is mobilizing. So maybe that's going to, lift the restrictions and get us out more doing things and, exploring more and learning more, gets all to that information intake. The that whole Cancer time of all those planets moving through Cancer, and giving us a better feel of how we can find that security within our emotional body, and maybe through the activities that we're doing, and what's going to nourish our self, our bodies, minds, and souls, right? It's all of that. And then moving into Leo, which forms in terms of the Jupiter in Pisces, It's an adjustment archetype here. So do you see, as we move from this Gemini, through all those months, the month of Gemini, months of Cancer, month of Leo, into the beginning of Leo here. And Leo's the creator archetype, creative, the ability to create. By the time we finish this little chapter with Jupiter and Pisces here, we're going to be maybe having a better sense of how to stand in our own creative center.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more.
Isn't that lovely?
Yeah, it is. And I think it all comes back to that assimilation piece too. Like we've had a chance to see some things, to experience them for ourselves, for our world, and say, does this work? And
Yes.
it kind of, discerns out the things that don't, keeps in the things that do. And then we're set up for this new age of energy that's available for us to live in and within. Don't you think?
Yeah, absolutely. And that is a natural process, and you might not even notice it because, it might be going on like it's a whole subjective development and it's a whole natural development. You're not going to be sitting there thinking, oh, I have to work this out with a pen and paper.
Right.
do,
Right.
do
Yeah,
you
it's a spiritual concept, really, where it's like that is working itself out in the unseen and actually doesn't need a ton of your help. But if you're paying attention, that's great because you may be able to help your process. But it's just not the thing I think a lot about is under this energy is that it's not a time of high mental facilitation.
Right, right.
It's more like a spiritual program of action is kind of what I keep thinking of at this particular time.
It's a feel and it's a flow, right? Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And, uh, Pisces is an archetype of sanctuary as well, too,
Mm,
right? So if during this period of time, your biggest message is, I just got to pull back from all this stress, and maybe just take some time out to regroup and find my spiritual center, find, just to rest, to relax for just a moment here, to just take a pause in between breath in and breath out.
yeah,
And, then that would be ideal for you.
yeah. So that's like that's an intense amount of time in terms of maybe being more of a human being than having to be a human doing, you
Right.
know?
Yeah.
So it's kind of a nice welcoming home of that energy to experience it in the fullness of its motion, just coming up here, not very long either.
Yeah. Absolutely. That's an awful lot of development in a very short period of time inwardly.
Yes, I tend to feel like the planets that develop us quietly are the ones that it's like, okay, you should really pay attention to that. Like Mercury's pretty, it's pretty in your face. You can kind of see it coming, see what's happening. You are watching that. But these quieter planets, Jupiter, Neptune, Pluto, it's like, oh no, that is going to create a fundamental shift in how you interact on this planet.
Hmm.
So, and it doesn't always need full participation, conscious participation, because it's just shifting and moving us.
Yeah, and when you know some astrology as well too, you tend to maybe look, especially as a beginner astrologer, you're going to go like, oh, there's Saturn's over here doing this, and you're going to concentrate on that. But whatever you wish to tune into, you can dial up.
Mhm.
So, that's kind of the beauty of knowing some astrology. Like, Jupiter and Pisces could be a more subtle or a background influence. But if you were going to, put some attention towards that, you could be in a really flourishing period in terms of inspiration and creativity, right? It could be
Yeah.
lovely. Yeah.
Absolutely. I can tell you that the Saturn transits that I've experienced, they kind of are what they are, and I can feel the growth in them, but they have been easier almost every time than my Jupiter ones. For sure. But that it's the dialing in. Once I realized typically what Jupiter was saying or trying to acquire my attention on, and it was the building of wisdom, which I was only going to get through experiencing it,
Hmm.
then I could say, oh, okay, this is why I'm making such a hard going of it. I'm waiting for Jupiter I am waiting to tell Jupiter how to manifest.
Mhm.
And it does not seem to be working that way. So that took some of the strain off of them, and they became easier because I understood then it was about a period of wisdom.
Excellent. Yes, excellent.
Yeah. So Saturn and I seem to be okay though. For anybody else out there who has, prominent Jupiter transits, and you're like, whoa, what was that? That happens too.
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Absolutely. Well, my gosh, that is so much, to think about and to go into and to be with. But do you feel like as you're interacting with clients right now that they kind of innately know this as well? Do you feel like it is a welling up in their information already?
I think so. I think so. Everybody has this sense of there must be more than this, and there is something around the corner for me. Right.
Mhm.
And that is indeed true. And it's you've chosen to be born and to be here right now at this very, very important time on our planet. This is
Right.
not an ordinary period of time. The word that I use for Pisces is iconic. It's
Mhm.
an iconic passage of time right here and right now. And yeah, we're all feeling it.
Yeah, I think so too. Oh my gosh, aren't we feeling the shift in our beliefs about how we connect to divine energy? What does that look like? What is acceptable? What's not? Oh my gosh, we are so in that. That is out in the open. Well, we were laughing a little bit about it before as astrologers. We're like the hot ticket item again because the thing that doesn't change is nature. So it's like, oh, we got to get back to the nature people, the nature symbol readers, and things like that.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. We're so out of balance, and we need to get back. We need to get back to our spiritual center. Absolutely, 1,000%.
Oh my goodness. So essentially, though, if we wrap this in a cool Jupiter and Pisces bow, what is the like one suggestion you would give to people to make the most of it as we're experiencing this?
Allow it to unfold. And give yourself quiet moments so that you can find inspiration again. Right? Yeah,
Mm,
that
yeah,
would be.
find that inspiration. Oh, I love that. I love that. Quiet moments are allowed.
Quiet moments are most definitely allowed.
Most
They're
definitely.
they're precious. We have to create more of them.
Absolutely. So, Rose, if people wanted to find you or work with you or have a session with you, where can they find you at?
My website is rosemarcus.com, and you'll find my contact information there. I have a monthly newsletter that's free. You can get on that. I'm teaching classes. I'll be giving a presentation at NORWAC. And I'm teaching with Patricia Walsh and Laura Nalbandian, Soulwise School of Evolutionary Astrology. I'm out there. You can find me.
Yeah, findable. And I'll make sure, as always, you guys, that the information is always or always also in the description box down below so that you can just click the links and make your way over to Rose's space and see what she's got to offer. And hopefully we will see you guys at NORWAC, which is going to just be, it's kind of neat because it is virtual. So we have an opportunity to include, I think, a fair amount of our community that maybe wouldn't have gotten to come if it was just in person. So we look forward to seeing you guys as well over there. And I will make sure that there is a link to NORWAC in the description box of this video as well. So Rose, thank you so much for coming to talk and speak. And that was just wonderful and passionate and thought provoking. And those are all things that I think make a really great session. So thank you.
Oh, it's been my absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for having me.
Awesome. All right, you guys, hopefully in this last amount of time we've been together, we gave you something that is worth the time you took to show up. And I sure think that it was. So let us know in the comment section down below, and we will see all of you guys in the next Eat and Greet, which will actually be tomorrow morning. We'll see you guys later. Bye.